What's happening, guys? Cap over here, and welcome to the semifinals of the WPE League. Today we're taking on T-Train, coach of the new Luster, Klinks, sort of the collaboration of Papa C and himself. And if you do recall way back when, we barely narrowly escaped with a 1-0 victory over Papa C, but we are taking on T-Train, who is a incredible battler. I spoke to a couple people about him, and nothing but high praise about him. A lot of people were saying that he's really good. Like, just that's pretty much the Spark Note summary of a lot of my discussions. He's really good. He's won the PGL. He was a finalist in the NPA, only losing to what I believe, and still truly do believe, is just pure hacks and rolls and whatnot. And he has like a really strong grasp in draft format too. So I was nervous going into this battle, and I did not take this team build lightly. I've watched a lot of his videos, tried to find any patterns or trends or anything that I can to get an upper hand. And it was tough for me too, just because I didn't really get to see how he uses this team. He took over Papa C, and I believe there's only 2 or 3 videos that I was able to watch to sort of get a grasp of what and how he uses this team. And it's a lot different than how Papa C used it too. So I was nervous going into this battle, but I had an incredible team to really back me up, not just in terms of the 6 mons that I brought in, but in terms of my front office, who helped me out a lot. All you guys know who you are, in particularly Easy Bake Oven, Lady Emma, Sky, G Mars, Zappy, David, always helping me out. David is always a solid guy, and Zappy too. Those guys really helped me sort of mold this team into what it is now. And then I've had a couple mock battles. Like I said, Lady Emma Sky helped me out with that. Narth Vader, Easy Bake, and Flitz Blitz, who just helped me out a lot with this team, just to get me a lot more comfortable with using it and sort of playing around and seeing what the big threats were. And I could not, like, 100%. I wouldn't have been as confident going into this match if I had not prepped and had the help from all you people. So thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to me. That you guys took time out of your days to just help me out to build this team over here. But let's get into the team builder and sort of what I'm expecting him to bring in. So, like I said, Mew, Gengar, Seismitoad, Haxorus, and Miltank, and Mega Mawile. Something that I sort of kept in mind. That was worst case scenario. And the first mon I'm going to have over here is the Keldeo, aka Pony, with Leftovers, Hydro Pump, Hidden Power Grass, Secret Sword, and Toxic. So pretty much this set is meant to just do a lot of damage. When I was starting this battle, I was like, alright, 100% of the time I'm going to lead off with Pony, because Pony puts on a lot of pressure against his mons. It doesn't allow him to get up rocks, especially with Miltank around, or I can get some really good damage with Miltank. If Seismitoad is in, I can pop the berry with Hidden Power Grass, because I was expecting a Rindo Berry. And if Gengar is in, I'm not messing around with that mon. I'm clicking Hydro Pump. It can be first turn, and he can overpredict it. That's fine by me. But I found that Keldeo seemed to sort of fare up fairly well with a lead in terms of that. So Keldeo is 100% of the lead. That's my game plan. That's how I'm going to play it. Toxic is nice just because it does it's sort of an annoyance on his team. And if I can get Mew, Miltank, Virizion, or any of those mons just poison, then that's awesome, because that allows things like Salamence and Mega Gross to really put in a lot of work too. Next up, we have the Mega Metagross, aka Capitan, with the Hammer Arm, Meteor Mash, Bullet Punch, and Grass Knot. Pretty much this mon is just busted as always, but this was a weird matchup. This was the hardest 4-slot syndrome that I've ever had an encounter with Mega Metagross. He has a team that consists of Mantine and Seismitoad, and that's primarily the main reason why it suffered from that 4-slot move syndrome. Without sacrificing something, I would lose something, and I could potentially lose to that thing. So I decided, you know what is most likely the thing that I will lose to if, you know, Mega Metagross is sort of dwindled down, or if it comes down to it, what are the mons that I lose to? So I decided I'm not going to lose to Mantine, so I don't need Thunder Punch. I'm not going to lose to Togekiss, I don't need Thunder Punch once again, or Ice Punch. But I will lose to Haxorus, I will lose to Darmanitan, and I will lose to Seismitoad or Gengar, and Mawile. So I decided, you know what, these are the 4 moves that make the most sense to me, and they allow me to sort of play around his bigger threats if I do end up dwindling down the team. Haxorus, I just gotta put it in range, I believe 30 to 40%. Bullet Punch will take it down. Darmanitan, once again, if I set up my rocks, it'll slowly take a lot of damage with the Stealth Rocks and Flare Blitz damage. It's relatively safe to say that, you know, Mega Metagross is gonna have a pretty good matchup against Darmanitan. Milk Tank is something that's just annoying. Seismitoad, once again, since I do naturally outspeed Seismitoad, even at, you know, this speed tier allows me to really just go to town on his speed tiers. 110 base speed is just, it's just so good. It's just so good. Grass Knot just takes down Seismitoad with the investment that I have on it. It allows me to really put a lot of pressure on him, and so does Bullet Punch with the Gengar. I believe it has to just be at like 40 to 50%, and I'm solid. So that's primarily the main reasons why I'm leading off with Gengar, or why I'm leading off with Keldeo. It allows things like Mega Metagross to have an easier time in the end game. Once again, it does take on Mega Mawile. It is pretty much one of the greatest mons to take on Mega Mawile. And Mew seems like it would be the logical choice for it to just, you know, be its solid check and whatnot. Now this is the Tyranitar over here, with the Lumberry, Unnerve, Crunch, Dragon Dance, Stone Edge, Earthquake. This came purely from the front office. This started off as a Choice Scarf Tyranitar, but it slowly evolved into this really cool set that sort of lures out the Mew and allows me to really put on a lot of pressure. It allows me to lure out the Miltank. It just lets me sort of lure out the mons that would take on Tyranitar and sort of make it into setup fodder at that point. Thanks to the Nerve, anything like Colbur Berry or even any berries whatsoever will not activate and, you know, sort of dwindle my chances of winning the battle. So it allows me 100% of the time to guarantee a Dragon Dance. After that, I can apply, sort of base it off of that, and Dragon Dance can actually go up to 2. This is meant to outspeed a Choice Scarf Gengar. If he does end up bringing it after +2, then I'm in a solid position. +2, it just runs through a lot of things on his team, and it could potentially sweep the rest of his mons if I'm at enough HP to a point where Mawile can will not revenge it with Sucker Punch. So it really puts in a lot of work depending on what sort of and how I bring it in, and what I can use as setup fodder. It's just a good mon to bring in this battle. Crunch and Stone Edge and Earthquake are just great coverage to have against this team. Stone is just so good. It's so good. Next up we have the Shaman, aka Boop, with a Kabai Berry, Natural Cure, Seed Flare, Earth Power Synthesis, and Toxic. One of the main checks to Gengar, once again, keep in mind that Gengar is probably the biggest threat to this team just because of its speed tier and its offensive presence. It really just applies a lot of pressure to this team too. It does check things like Mantine, it does check things like Seismitoad, Mantine not carrying Air Slash, that is. It doesn't really check Haxorus, but thanks to the Kabai Berry, if it is at +1, it'll allow me to get some chip damage on it and allow other things like Salamence or El Capitan, my Mega Metagross, to really come in and just simply finish off with a Bullet Punch or something like that. And it does take on like sort of a bulky Mew just because of Natural Cure and whatnot. And Earth Power is just good coverage to have because it doesn't allow things like Mega Mawile, it doesn't allow things like Darmanitan to come in for free, or Gengar. And if I just make the right play properly, it can potentially do a lot of work. Kabai Berry guarantees me some damage on the Gengar too. Plus, if the Seismitoad is offensive and has Sludge Wave, I'm in a better position, but there's things like Ice Beam and whatnot, so Bob's your uncle, I guess. Next up, we have our late game sweep for the Choice Scarf. Salamence with Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Stone Edge, and Outraged. This mon pretty much just comes in late game and pretty much sweeps. If we can get rid of Mega Mawile, that gives us free access to go for an Outrage and really put on a lot of pressure. After a +1, I believe Miltank, Seismitoad only have to be at, what is it, like 81%, and we simply just take down a lot of things on his side. Next up, we have Uka Uka, the Alolan Marowak with Colbur Berry, Lightning Rod, Toxic, Shadow Bone, Flare Blitz, and Stealth Rocks. Now this mon is just pretty much a hard check to Mega Mawile. Even at +2, it does take a Sucker Punch, thanks to the bulk that it has, and we can simply KO it with Flare Blitz, play some Mind Games with Stealth Rocks, and in case he does bring Trick Room, we have that little precaution thing to just make sure we don't take that damage from it. So always get to sort of play that way. I do not want to get swept by a Trick Room Mega Mawile, so that was something that I was sort of aware of. It allows me to also get Stealth Rocks pretty decently well, just because of things that he has. I don't imagine him bringing in any defoggers or anything, because he might try to set up rocks on me, and rocks, well, they don't necessarily hurt me as much as they hurt him, but getting up rocks is going to be good just because things like Darmanitan, Haxorus, once again, it breaks sashes, it breaks, you know, that extra insurance that, you know, I can get that extra chip damage, and once again let Salamence or Mega Metagross come in late game and potentially sweep. So that's pretty much the gist of my plan. I do not want him to allow things like Gengar, Haxorus, Mega Mawile to make a big impact in this game. If I can get rid of Seismitoad as soon as possible, that would be awesome, just because Seismitoad is a pain to my team, and it really just, it doesn't do good stuff. It doesn't do good stuff. And of course Mew is going to be a pain just because of the, like, so much offensive presence that I have on my side. That's something that I'm going to have to be really careful with. So let's get into the battle. Alright, so my first initial reaction to the 6 Pokemon that he brought in today was, alright, cool, no Mega Mawile, that is fantastic, that allows Alola and Marowak to have a bit more wiggle room. Alright, no Darm, that's good, that lets Keldeo and other things not die so easily to it. That's a good thing when you can preserve Pokemon like that. And no Miltank, so no T-Wave, no shenanigans and whatnot, but couple red flags went up right away, and that's seen Seismitoad and Mantine there together. And I thought he brought in a Swift Swim Seismitoad and a Rain Dance Water Absorb Mantine, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm regretting of taking away a Hidden Power Electric from Keldeo, because I was 100% sold that Mantine would not come into this battle, and I prepped it that way too. And looking at my team, I don't have a lot of answers for Mantine. The only way of me dealing with Mantine is overpowering it with just physical presence, poisoning it, and I believe Tyranitar, if it can outspeed it, is the only way that it can really handle that Mantine. So I was scared of Mantine. Like, to be honest, Mantine was probably one of the most underrated scary mons to go against right now for this 6 mons that I brought in today. So oh boy, it was a weird reaction. So initially looking at past Mantine and Seismitoad, T-Tar has a really good matchup in this game. I have 3 mons that I can potentially set up Dragon Dance on, that being Gengar, Mew, and the Mantine. Shaman puts in a lot of work too. It can potentially 1v1 a Mew, it can lure out Gengar and put in range for Bullet Punch, and it can take out Seismitoad and put a lot of pressure on Mantine that's not carrying Air Slash, and potentially take down Magnezone. So that's something good. Like I said before, Alolan Marowak has a lot less pressure on it. It only has to set up Stealth Rocks. If it does, job well done, buddy. You can hit the showers. You've done your job. That's all I want you to do. And Salamence, once again, late game sweeper, come in, try to clean up the game, and allow rain to not happen. So, like I said in the team builder, I'm gonna lead out with Keldeo. He leads out with Gengar. And right away, turn 1, we have a 50-50. Thanks to how my team is composed, this is a 50-50 because either he goes for Psychic or Thunderbolt, does a lot of damage on me. If he's Choice Specs, he could potentially want to KO me. Or if he is trying to predict my T-Tar to come in, he goes for Focus Blast, I live the hit, I fire off a Hydro Pump, get a lot of damage off. Or I can go into a Alolan Marowak and he fires off a Focus Blast or something like that. So a lot of plays can happen over here, but pretty much what I was thinking about when I was building this team and how I wanted it to handle Gengar was that I need to make sure Gengar gets a lot of damage off to a point where it's not a threat. So for me to take a bit of damage on Keldeo as opposed to let Gengar run through my whole team was definitely worth the 50-50 at this point. So I decided to stay in, hoping that he might overpredict or not carry the Psychic or go for something else. And he ends up going for the Focus Blast, which is fantastic for me because now I can fire off this Hydro Pump, do a clean 94%, and he does get the Curse Body, but this means that Gengar is no longer a threat to Mega Metagross. Mega Metagross can handle this thing, and that's good. That's really good. If I get up Rocks, Gengar is no longer a threat. It only can potentially claim one Pokemon at this point. So fantastic for me. I also get some really good knowledge that knowing that this thing is Choice Scarfed, and just because it doesn't do specs damage, it doesn't do Life Orb damage, as we can tell over there, and him just playing it the way that he did tells me that, you know, I could have been a Choice Scarf Keldeo, and for him going for the Focus Blast like that could really tell me that, you know, it could be a potential Choice Scarf for that way. So I decided to go into Salamence, as I reveal my lefties at this point, and he switches out into Mew, as unfortunately I don't get the proper switch up over here, or the matchup, and I decide to go right into Shaman because Shaman is a pretty good mod to handle Mew at this point. He does reveal the Will-O-Wisp over here, which tells me that this definitely could be a defensive variant of Mew. It just depends on what sort of investments that he has distributed on his Mew, in terms of, like, is it fully defensive, is it bold, is it what does it want to do, and seeing what sort of coverage it does have. So I'm trying to scout out what this Mew is and what it could potentially do, as I just fire off a Seed Flare, get some clean damage, and at this point I'm like, alright, I can potentially win against this Mew. If I fired enough, thanks to chance and you know, just pure math and whatnot, I should be able to get a Spadaf drop and potentially put myself in a spot where he's forced to switch out and I'm put in a proper position. So the way that we're playing, Psychic is only doing like 20% to my Shaman. That's damage I'm willing to take. I'm doing a lot more damage to this thing, and that's pretty much all I wanted to do at this point. There's no point of me just going for anything else. Finally do get the Spadaf drop, and this puts it at a 50-50. I can go for Earth Power, predicting a Gengar to come in, or predicting Magnezone to come in, or something like that, or he just goes into something else and predicts my Shaman to go for Earth Power or something like that. So I decide, you know what, I need to preserve my Seed Flares. I have only 4 of them. I wasted 4 of them already, and I go for the Earth Power as Mountain comes in, and just that face over there, just so silly. So I'm just gonna switch into Keldeo, as I predict, you know, I'm hoping that he doesn't have Air Slash, because Air Slash runs through my team. But when I was building for Mantine, I figured, you know, if he does end up bringing Mantine, most likely he can't carry Air Slash, because he has to be like some variant of, like, he has to have Roost. There we go. He has to have Roost. He has to have Scald, and he has to have maybe Ice Beam or something like that. And if he has Air Slash, then, you know, it could potentially be that. But Mantine as an offensive one doesn't really strike to me as like the best set to bring in. So I'm like, alright, Keldeo is definitely a good switch in at this point. It does relatively handle Mantine relatively well, but yeah. So at this point, I figured I fired off a Toxic. I don't want to reveal the Hidden Power Electric, just because that would be a big reveal at that moment, and I figured, you know what, poisoning something would be good, because either Haxorus might come in, Magnezone might come in. If Magnezone comes in, then I get some good information, and most likely it is not Scarf 2, not a Scarf Zone, so just because his Gengar seems to be the option for that one, and if Toad comes in, so be it. But like I said, that was my play to make. It allows Mew to get dwindled down to poison damage, and it doesn't allow it to stall me out with Softball and Roost, or with Roost, I believe. So now I can just send out Uka Uka, as he ends up going for another Willow. And just looking at this Mew once again, I'm not predicting to have any, like, I believe he's revealed all his move, which is Roost, Will-O-Wisp, Psychic, and Stealth Rock. So Uka Uka can take one hit from this thing, and I can set up my Stealth Rocks, which he does end up predicting, which is a solid play on his part. And this is where the first real 50-50 comes into play, because the first one was sort of just, you know, it was just testing out the waters to see where we're at, what's happening, how we're going to play this match. But this is big, because if he goes for Shadow Ball, I lose my switch into Magnezone, and he can Volt Switch all over my face, as long as, like, whenever he wants to do that. Or if I go into T-Tar and he goes for Shadow Ball, I can set up a Dragon Dance and potentially, like, get a lot of damage, a lot of chip damage on his team, and allow things like Outrage, Salamence to come in and really put in a lot of work, or things like that. So I decide, you know what, I'm gonna put in I'm gonna send out T-Tar. T-Tar is the best play for me because from that scenario I actually would be able to win that match. I believe Mew is at 79%, and all I have to do is enough damage to a point where pretty much, yeah, all I would have to do is just make sure I just keep on clicking Outrage. Gengar doesn't have a switch in anymore just because of Stealth Rocks, and with a +1 boost, I pretty much KO a lot of things on his team. So for me, the optimal play for myself was to go for T-Tar. If he had predicted me, then that's solid on his part. That would be just ballsy. That would just be ballsy. So I ended up going into T-Tar, and as we can see over here, he ends up going for a Shadow Ball, get the spit off draw, which sucks, but it's not the worst thing of all worst things. It doesn't allow me to go at +3 Tyranitar, which pretty much would have destroyed a lot of things on his side and not allow me to miss with Stone Edge. Pretty much that's it. That's pretty much the gist of that. That's the gist of the spit F drop. So now I can start setting up Dragon Dances. I think he's trying to sack off his Gengar at this point, but he hasn't seen me. He hasn't seen me use a Dragon Dance set all season long. I believe if he's watched my games at all, I usually just bring like a Choice Banded or some sort of offensive variant, not a setup variant of T-Tar. And this is where I'm getting excited because I'm like, oh dang, T-Tar, can you destroy things at this moment? Can you destroy things? And this is where the end game is slowly coming into the picture at this point, because T-Tar at this moment does outspeed a Scarf Gengar, and it also does a lot of damage to Magnezone. If I can get Magnezone to a point where it's just at, let's say, for like 20% or 30%, I believe the damage is like, it does 70 to 80%. I can bring in Salamence, go for an Outrage, and slowly start picking up KOs at that moment. If I do end up, taking out Magnezone, then I can pick up more KOs and pick up more KOs to a point where Salamence can be brought in and actually just win the battle. So that was the end game that I saw at that moment. I was like, alright, pretty much that puts me in a solid position. All I have to do is click Crunch, and what do you know, Gengar goes first, and I'm like, what happened here? What went wrong? And this was frustrating because Pokemon Showdown had actually resetted some of my EVs on some Pokemon. It sort of messed it up. I didn't have any defensive investment on Alola and Marowak. I didn't have speed investment. Well, I didn't have the speed investment that I normally would have had to outspeed the Scarf Gengar. And that was big because this cost me the end game right here. It cost me like a lot of momentum because Salamence almost pretty much won at that point. If I had taken down Gengar at that moment, he might have just sent out Magnezone and it would have been a different scenario. But that took a lot of wind out of my sails because it was bad. It was really bad. And all of a sudden I have to send out Mega Metagross, go for a Bullet Punch. Like I said before, Gengar is no longer a threat, so I can go for a safe Bullet Punch and keep on applying a lot of momentum. Take out Gengar at this moment. And he ends up sending out his Magnezone, which was relatively interesting because I do have the Hammer Arm, which I thought was going to be useless, but Magnezone is in the battle and I can simply fire up a Hammer Arm, take it down, and suddenly we turn that table around. We have a lot of momentum, and we're looking pretty solid. So now at this point we have sort of, I'll explain my play over here and why I did it. I'm going for Grass Knot 100% of the time, and he goes into Haxorus. So the reason why, as you can tell over here, I'm going to go for Grass Knot, and I want to explain why this was my play to make. Knowing that he was a Seismitoad that could potentially, do a lot of damage to my Mega Metagross, I knew that if he had sack off Seismitoad, I don't think Seismitoad would have KO'd my Mega Metagross thanks to my investment, and since it was a timid nature to outspeed a couple things on my team, he would have to be a timid nature to outspeed a Scarf Mance, I believe, or a Scarf Keldeo. And since with my investment I would have lived. If you had sack off Seismitoad, Mantine, Haxorus, and Mew do not win the match by themselves at this moment. Just because Mega Metagross or Seismitoad in the rain actually sweeps from my team. That's his win condition right there. That's his way of winning the battle. So he cannot play Reckless with it. So him going into Seismitoad tells me that, alright, Grass Knot is the play to make just because I don't lose a lot of stuff from that. He makes the correct play over here going into Haxorus, but I decide that at this point, Salamence can still come in and pretty much finish up the game too, still at that moment. Just because, like, he goes for Rock Slide over here, and the reason why I decided to stay in, and this is why Mega Metagross is so good in this format, and why it should be banned, is because of how bulky this Mon is. With its incredible defense, this allows a 50-50 play, essentially two 50-50 plays, to roll out in my favor. Grass Knot. Since Earth Power doesn't KO me, I can live that Earth Power and fire off a Grass Knot, KO his win condition. So I get that 50-50 play correct. He plays pretty passive over there, and it sort of doesn't work out for him. He brings out Haxorus. Now Haxorus takes some damage and is in range for Meteor Mash. Haxorus does not KO my Mega Metagross with Earthquake, and I can simply take it down with Meteor Mash. And that was my thought process. I was like, all right, cool. If he does end up taking out, you know, this Mon, so be it. His only way of really taking me down was with a Choice Banded or a Life Orb crit on Earthquake. And I was willing to make that sacrifice because that way I would get some good information. I can bring out Salamence and I would pretty much finish off the game. So that's why the Mega Metagross is so good in this match. And since he overpredicted, predicting my Salamence to come in, I can simply take out his Haxorus and take out another big threat. But now once again another big threat is in here, the Mantine, and I have to go right into a lone Marowak just to sack it off because it is not doing anything at this point. It's not doing anything good, and it allows me to bring in Shaman and fire off a Seed Flare. Now this is a big point in this match because I need to waste rain turns, and I don't have a lot of options for that. So I also realized that, oh snap, rain sort of dwindles my synthesis ability. So now I have to fire off a Seed Flare. I can see what sort of investment this Mantine has, and fortunately for me, I do take it relatively well, and this is where the game-changing Spit F drop happens. And what I mean by game-changing is this is definitely a game changer right here, just because this doesn't allow Mantine to come in anymore and simply, like, it changes a 50-50 at this point. He's forced to go for Ice Beam. That's his only play to make, or he goes into Seismitoad or something like that. Those are his only plays to make. He can't even go into Seismitoad because I do have Seed Flare. So he's forced to go for Ice Beam because if he goes for Roost, he would take a lot of damage, and Mantine just loses to Seed Flare. So he essentially would lose the one check to Mega Metagross and his potential only rain setter. So at this moment, I'm like, alright, he has to click Ice Beam, I'm switching into Keldeo because that's my play to make. He has to make a play, I have to make a play. There's two plays that we both have to make, and we both make the correct play, but mine fortunately counters his play, and now I can just fire off Hidden Power Grass all day, because as you can see over here, we're wasting rain turns. He only has 4 more turns of rain at this moment, and we do 60%, a lot more than he's recovering. So now I'm just going to keep on applying pressure with Hidden Power Grass, and he ends up sending out Seismitoad, which does not take it. The reason why he did send out Seismitoad over here was because he thought it was Hidden Power Electric, and it naturally does make sense because the way that I brought this Keldeo throughout the whole match was the way that, you know, normally a Hidden Power Electric Keldeo would come in as, and it naturally makes sense. But me being so ignorant in terms of, oh, he's not bringing Mantine, it's actually Hidden Power Grass, and that was sort of a last minute decision on my end, which ends up paying off for me. So with that big KO, Pony is just, oh, just always just so good, so good. Thanks to the lefties, I actually have a chance of living the next hit, thanks to it. And I do end up living my Scald, and Pony takes out the 2 Rain Pokemon, showing that, you know, Ponies are much more superior than Mantines and Toads. And that works out so good. So at this moment, I'm getting excited because this could be a berth in the finals. Mew is the only Mon standing in my way, and I send out Mega Metagross because Mega Metagross can potentially 2-KO this Mon, but this Mew is fat, and I'm like, dang, why does that do so little damage? Thanks to Stealth Rock and Tox damage, I was like, I could 2-KO this thing easily, but 18.8%. This Mew is so fat. Luckily for me, early in the early part of the game, this Mew did get poison, which means we can actually win this exchange. I also have Shaman in the back pocket with Synthesis, and I can still win that battle thanks to me being able to recover a lot more damage than he can recover, and firing off a lot more damage than he can fire off. So it sort of works out that way. He ends up forfeiting because it's pretty much it's inevitable on what will happen. I will eventually at some point win that match in terms of with Shaman synthesizing, or, you know, just going into Salamence and firing off a lot of outrages and seeing what would happen at that point. Poison damage was ultimately stacking up, and yeah, it was just a lot of things going on at that moment, and I don't think he would have won that exchange. Plus, we were sharing some sets at the moment, and I actually had enough speed to outspeed his Mew 100% of the time because I had put 12 EVs on my Shaman and he had put in 8 EVs on his Mew, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, T-Train, correct me if I'm wrong. So I would have gotten the healing up 100% of the time, which would have cancelled out the 50-50 with the recovery and psychic, and it just would have been a whole different exchange. It would have been a whole different exchange. So GG to T-Train. That was an incredible battle. Unfortunately, a lot of hacks played a lot of part into this battle, and I honestly have to say that without the Spadef drop on Mantine, I don't think I would have came out victorious. And that was perhaps the game-changing hacks for my end, and unfortunately came at the cost of T-Train. And he was really cool about it. We talked about it after, and he was just like, it sucks, it really does suck, but you know, it's the game that we play, and he was a really good sport about it, and we even talked a bit about the match and what could have happened and what he could have changed, and you know, different scenarios and whatnot. So he's a really cool guy. Check him out. I'll put his link in the description down below. He does a really cool series of should it be banned or not. I recommend you check it out. Has a lot of like, it's got some incredible info in terms of like Magearna, Mega, Kangskong, really clean layout and all. So I recommend that you guys check him out. Fantastic guy, fantastic battler, and once again, GG man, GG. This perhaps was the semi-final battle on paper, but for me it felt like the championship game because T-Train is just such a good battler, and it was so hard to prep for him. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I do apologize if this is a longer video. I will timestamp it. I'll do all I can, and I just try to explain my plays a lot more than I normally would, just because of how much effort I put into these battles. Like these playoffs, I put in so much effort, and it really does show in the team building and whatnot. So thank you so much for watching. If you stick around for this long, let me know. You guys are one of the marching few that watch the full video. So thank you so much, and have yourselves a good day. Peace.